Welcome back! This time round, I'm going to be showing you how much variety you can get with your ink. So you can mix all of them, you can get different colourways, you can throw down some other material, which you're going to see in this too. What I've done is I've used the same sperm whale template, and I've done a variety of different options. So I've used a different combination of acrylic ink, we've used some Pelican ink mixed with salt, we've got some bleach on there, we have wax in this one, which is quite interesting. I mean, this isn't necessarily the best use of wax, but it shows you how a wax resistor will work with your ink. And then we have, again, we have a combination of pure acrylic ink here with some salt applied, which I think is quite nice. The template for this tutorial is available in the captions, so you can, if you wanted to, get the same whale template that I'm working from and just try it yourself. What I'd recommend doing is printing that out or just taking your watercolour paper up to the screen and drawing over it, and then using the fineliner, which is waterproof, which is brilliant because you can see here I poured all sorts of stuff over it, and the fineliner that's included is not going to bleed anywhere, which is perfect for this. Right, so without further ado, let's have a look at how we made these. So the first technique that I wanted to show you was how to do wax resist. So what I'm doing here is I'm using the crayon and I'm just drawing the texture of the sperm whale that I think would be in that place, because they have these really distinct markings on their skin. It's almost their blubber is kind of it looks like when you sit in the bath for too long. What you're going to want to do though is, because it's quite difficult to see where you place the wax for the most part, unless you've got a really bright room where it is hitting, the light is hitting it. So I tilt it every now and again just to make sure I know where I put the marks. What I've done now is I picked up the round brush and I am going to apply a layer of water. You can see I'm neatly following the line of the whale, and what you can do is you'll go around the outline of the whale and then you can flood the rest of it with water. So I'm speeding it up here and just neatly going around the edge, and you can start to see where the water is resisting that wax, or the wax is resisting the water, but you can see where that's placed a lot easier now. So I'm flooding that, and what I tend to do is I will take, at the end, when I've completely done the edge, I will flood it even more to make sure that when I put the ink down, because you can see here I've got the blue acrylic ink and I'm just dropping it out of the dropper. What I wanted to do is spread really far in a very fluid way. If you didn't have the surface water on there, it wouldn't spread so quickly. And every time that you do this, you're probably going to get a different result, because your paper will react in a different way. You'll have a different area which is bowed, so you can see in the middle of the whale it's actually an area where the paper's bowed and it's forcing, it doesn't want to naturally go there because it's going up a hill. So you can use your brush now and push that ink around, because without that, the ink won't necessarily do what you want it to. So I intentionally left the eye lighter a minute ago, and I've just filled that in. You can see it's flooding there because I didn't want it to go too dark straight away. What I'm doing is just neatening up the edges, pushing that ink around, and ensuring that everything that I want to be blue is blue. This one I didn't want the inside of the mouth to be blue, so I've left that, just neatly touching up those last bits. But you can see that by flooding it with this acrylic ink, you get lots of variety with the way that it's going down, and you can then go back like I'm doing here, and ink will affect your paper very quickly. So if you tried to take that off completely, it wouldn't work. But you can see by applying the brush in that area, and if I were to dab my tissue down now, you could take quite a lot of the blue off of that surface. But what I've done is, in an area where I wanted to draw attention to the eye, I've removed the blue, which you can do. So you can, if you wanted to, you could put more water down and take ink off if you wanted to. But there is good variation around the top of the head, a part of the body, and in the tail with the kind of the way that the blue is dried. Now my blue is completely dried. What I'm doing is I'm applying a wash around the on the outside of the whale to imply that it is in the sea. So all I've done is really watered down the acrylic ink, and I'm just spreading that in a way which looks kind of organic. Technique 2 is acrylic ink and salt. So this for me was a big kind of, I got to play. I got to play with lots of different things and materials that I knew would make the ink react in a different way. So we're going to implement bleach in some of these. What I'm going to do is I'm applying salt. I want a texture to go across the surface of the well, but what I'm doing is I'm ensuring there's more salt at the top of the well, so we can almost put an ombre of blue up, and it should make the texture that we're looking for more obvious at the top. What I've done is I've mixed the green deep ink and I've mixed the blue ink, and I've mixed that to make that beautiful kind of aquamarine colour on the right hand side, and now I'm adding it. It won't spread in the same way as it did in the first version as well, because the surface water had a clean route to kind of doing what it wanted to, but you know, there's little icebergs here with the salt stopping you from doing that. So you'll have to work a little bit harder to get it to spread, but on the flip side of that, the texture that you're going to get is going to be beautiful. So you can see it starting to mottle now, and I was a bit overzealous with that with that flick, so I've got some external ink blobs. Now I put some bleach on there, and it's quite funny to watch the pigment kind of running away from the bleach. So we've got that lovely white area at the bottom, because as I say, I'm trying to aim for an ombre. Just dabbing a bit off. It's always great to have a bit of tissue handy. And I've taken a hairdryer to this. So you'll see at the top where the blowhole is, that's where the ink has kind of escaped when I've been a bit too quick with it. And all I'm doing now is I'm brushing off the salt from the surface, and you want a completely smooth surface. What I've got here is the Pelican Ink, and I'm just doing the same as I did with the first one, which is adding that some sense of the sea. And you can see I've gradiated it from the Pelican up to the blue, the pure blue that we were using before. The final technique, this is basically me playing in loads of different ways with the same template. The reason that I've included that template is because it's so much fun to keep doing, because you'll get a different result each time. This one I'm starting off by using the Pelican Ink to establish, you know, the dark elements of the well to get the shadow in there, and I'm going to switch into another a combination of the acrylic in a minute. I'm just looking, you know, I've established that bottom line. What I'm doing now is just flooding it with water and a very watered down version of the Pelican, and I'm going to push that around the rest of the well. With this version of the well, because I'd done two which were, you know, very different techniques prior to this, I wanted to paint more. So, you know, apply a bit more of that painterly approach by mixing different colours. Doing that. I liked the salt from the last one though, so I'm going to apply that to the top line, because I think that was a really interesting way of doing it. So it's less about having it completely over this well, but I just wanted the top line to be really saturated with salt. Just going to put some more detail in. This is the acrylic going on now, so I'm going to add a different tone of blue, but I'm going to water it down, because what I've just done on the right hand side, if you can see, it's very rich. So we're going to get it to a level we want by just adding more and more water. You can see we mixed the Pelican in with that just then. So you've got a little bit of that going on, but it's a very different shade of blue. So I'm just going to, we're working out the texture of this thing being a well, and we're going to try and get a different version of the previous two. Just adding in a bit more shadow under there. You can see that when you put down, when your surface, you can't see because my head's in the way, which is useful. But when I put that down and the surface around it was already wet, it bled a lot. So certain areas you might want to look at adding extra detail when it's dried, if you want more control about the fidelity of line. Here I'm just trying to get as much texture as possible, and knowing that it's going to dry a lot lighter. I mean, the acrylic ink can dry super bright if you put it down with 100% without, you know, watering it down. But there you go. So that is the difference between it dried and it wet. So it loses a lot of the vibrancy. I'm just pushing off the salt the same as the previous one, and you can see that it gradiates nicely from a dark to a light, but you've got that beautiful dappledness. So we actually had a lot of fun with this one, because I like to be quite firm with the line placement I put down and quite detailed in parts, and I like the fact that you don't have control over the ink sometimes. I love the idea of putting a water wash down and letting it go crazy, because then it adds another dimension to what you're doing. So you've got the element of control, and then you also have the element of it, you know, you have no control. So I hope that was useful, and there's some techniques in there which you may not have known before. And we'll see you next time on the 15th. And don't forget, there's a template in the captions. Bye guys!